Hey, and we are live. Welcome to 2025. And we've got a guest with us today. George, how are you doing?
What the fuck? Good.
Oh,
It's good to be back. You know,
Holy
I've,
crap.
I've been letting you two run the show, and yeah, it was still just as useless as when I was here. So I'm
Right.
back.
Yes. And if you don't know where you are, you're on the Killer Be Killed podcast, and you're probably lost because this is the least listened to podcast in the country, in the
I think we're up
world.
to like 7 though.
Right. There are some.
I don't know. I think we gained like one or two, right? Didn't we?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Mostly Clay.
That's right.
Right. So, yeah, let's get right into it. We were going to start with, I think we should start talking about what happened in New Orleans and then what happened in
Yeah.
Vegas and then what happens there, and then bring up the clip that I'm sure a lot of people have seen of the woman who's the CIA targeter. Hey, Clayton, Happy New Year, brother. Thanks for joining us. I think that because that will I think that illustrates really what she's predicting and what's happening. So what do we know about what happened in New Orleans? New Year's Eve, truck runs over 30 people, kills 15, injures 30, comes out, has a shootout with law enforcement, and winds up getting shot. Nobody, from what I understand, nobody has been killed by a gunshot wound. I may be incorrect on that. It was originally there were 10 people injured, 10 people killed, and 35, and then 5 people, I guess, succumbed to their injuries. Again, awful. This can't be the new normal, but I mean, the reality is, we've been letting a shit ton of people on our border over the last few years, and they've already been here too. I mean, these people are operating, and that's every country, right? It's not like we don't have people, it's like we don't have like intelligence gatherers or people, we don't have our, military in other countries, so, it's normal. It's normal, I guess, nation state shit where you got intel guys in there, right? So, I mean, that's normal. But now, I mean, these guys are, these are starting to be coordinated attacks, splintered attacks. You have what's happening. Let's look at what happened in New Orleans first.
Now this wasn't like at a peak. It wasn't like the peak hours of like fucking New Year's. Was this? I mean, wasn't it like 3:00 in the morning or something? I don't know the exact time, but I don't believe it was right around when tons and tons of people were fucking there, though.
Well, I think I think I'm trying to see if I'm looking at an article right now. It was at 3:15 a.m. Correct. But bro, New Orleans, that's like peak time, dude. Understand, like you're out.
But you think if you're trying to maximize, right, you would think that you would, I don't know, hit it a little closer to, the fucking ball dropping, right, as opposed to 3:30 in the morning.
Well, 3:30 in the morning, you've got more people drunk, more people are out, more people are distracted. You're definitely not paying attention, right? So
yeah.
You probably have, easier target.
Yeah, I wonder, I'm sure the law enforcement presence at midnight is different than the law enforcement presence at 3 a.m. as well.
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans always has a robust.
Yeah.
I've been down there a few times. They've always got a good presence. There's cops on every corner. There's horses. There's, you can look and see a cop, especially on Bourbon Street. I mean, that's like what it is. I mean, how this guy, they were talking something about how, I mean, if I'm going to share my screen, present. So, I mean, here's this path, right? So, trucks goes around police SUV, like some of the traffic barriers weren't, they were getting serviced or they weren't installed correctly or something like that. yeah, then he made it through, mowed down people. Then you're seeing a truck crash into a vehicle, suspect killed in shootout with police. Investigators found a pipe bomb wired for remote detonation in concealed coolers. Yeah, C4 and nails. I mean, just some nasty shit. Now they're saying that there are other people involved. They had more. It wasn't just a lone gunman. It was, an organized assault. Clayton says whatever security there is will be more relaxed after the climax. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm like, what do we know about this guy? He was a veteran. He was, I don't know if he was if he was a foreigner or that was in the army or was American born. We know he trained at Fort Bragg. He wasn't special forces. That was somebody else. He was from Texas originally and came in through and actually was down south of the border, 2 days ago. So, for him coming in, trying to make it seem like it was an illegal situation. It's not. He's obviously a U.S. citizen. He's a veteran. So, he can come and go as he please. It's like now, what, will we know what, radicalized this guy? Will we know, who else was involved? Yeah, there's just a lot. And then on the other side, you've got what happened in Vegas outside Trump. I mean, you're hearing reports of, the guy was, so the one fatality was the guy which again, shocks me. He's a Green Beret, Special Forces, he was killed in the car, but then, now you're hearing, we don't know what's fact or what's fiction, that he had gunshot wounds. And
yeah, so I was reading just today that they said he shot himself before.
Yeah, so who knows what you would think, though. The weirdest thing about this is, one, you obviously didn't research. I mean, obviously they picked the Cybertruck and in front of Trump's building for an obvious freaking reason, right? Who knows the Tesla? I mean, that thing really didn't shred. The glass flew. I mean, the windows flew out. It really wasn't. It wasn't like the doors flew off. I mean, the blast was pretty well contained in the vehicle. You would think that someone of this level of training would have had a higher, but he would have picked a better, opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
Just injuring a handful of people doesn't seem like he's making, I don't feel that someone who's willing to take their own lives is going to do something with such minimal effect or body count. So
it makes it weird.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps getting stranger. And the only connection right now that they have with these guys is they were both at Fort Bragg at the same time, which Fort Bragg is massive. It's not like, they didn't serve in the same unit. I don't know if and we're getting fed what we're getting fed anyway. So,
yeah,
who knows? And then there was a shooting in Queens nightclub.
Yep.
I don't think this might not be connected. It just seems like a little bit too far out, because that seemed more like maybe gang related, but again, now it's like, but it's working, right? So now you're like, you've got two events and now we're subconsciously connecting these or consciously connecting these. And now everything's being connected. Anything that's out of the norm. And that's exactly what the goal is here, right? It's to destabilize us. It's to get us to not trust certain groups, certain people. It's to, get us, to, not feel safe and secure. And the reality is, which we all know and which we all been doing. I mean, you need a certain level of preparedness when you're walking out in public, period.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, this is look, now it's every time I go someplace, I got my armor and I'm carrying, period. That's just what it is. And that's it. If I'm, going to a restaurant, I'm going to a fucking, whatever. It's just this is where we are. I mean, we've got, thousands. I mean, this, I guess we should put on the let me play the Sean Ryan interview. So the woman that was on Sean Ryan that want to play, her name's Sarah Adams. She's on Sean Ryan's show. She warns of suicide bombers and the next wave of terror to hit the U.S. She's a CIA targeter. This refers to, if you don't know what a targeter is, be honest, I kind of figured it out, but I really never heard the term before until now. She's an analyst who is responsible for identifying, assessing, and prioritizing individuals or group considered high-value targets for covert operations or surveillance. Essentially, she's deciding who the CIA should focus on to gather intelligence or take action against based on their threat level in the U.S. So I'm going to just present. We're just going to do bits and pieces of this. So we can, and these 50 things, these things are great. This looks like some quasi homoerotic, old man,
Nice.
I can say I don't get those advertisements.
Yeah, well, that's because you're not in the age group, bro. And this is what I look like. I think I'm the guy on the right. So anyway, all right. So let's just start and then just have her, and I'll stop.
All
right. So
certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda trained fighters within the United States borders. Man, this stuff scares the shit out of me.
We have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now.
And they're going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. Trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States. But for the Homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying. So they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack. So the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attack.
So thoughts on that?
That sounds accurate.
Yeah, I think it's a conservative number, to be honest.
Well, like she said, so as you watch this whole video, which I doubt you're going to play, but if everybody wants to watch the whole video,
we're going to play it bit by bit, so we can.
This 13-minute clip,
section.
right? She talks about how they are tracking a very specific operation.
Yes,
right?
This is not exactly. This is not like someone theorizing.
Right. And they know that for this specific operation, 1,000 people were trained.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And so that's what she's saying is there's no doubt in her mind there's more than 1,000 operatives here in America. But for this operation, there's 1,000.
And most people will look at this and look at her and think that she's just kind of, make it look. I mean, could she be? Yeah. I mean, is she, she's get, a lot of people say a lot of shit. I mean, for, just to get some FaceTime, right?
Yeah.
So, but, we can see based on what she's saying and what's happening, how can you, you've got to take this, you've got to seriously consider the source and reflect it against what's currently happening.
Is there any indication of what kind of attacks these are going to be? Actually, before we get into that, how old is this information?
I mean, it's ongoing. So the training's already done, right? So all the training info is now old because they trained all the Homeland attackers, if that makes sense. So next week, you're not going to get info of a Homeland attacker probably at a terrorist camp because it's already done. So all this has been in the last year.
So it's been over a year. It's been a year. Because
this was a continuation. So they planned October 7th first, and then they rolled into planning this after.
Are we next or is Europe next?
I think the embassy attacks are next, in my opinion.
What are they waiting for the embassies?
I don't think they're waiting. I think it took time to train them. They've now approved them, and they've now moved into the operational stage.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, right? So she's talked about 3 different operations now, right?
Right.
So she talked about the homeland attack on American soil. She talked about European attacks.
Yep.
And she talked about now embassy attacks. 3
Yes.
different operations that they're tracking that very specific camps were held to train
And
people.
they know they train for this.
Right. The training's done. Like she said, the intel's old, right? You know,
Yeah, right.
By the time they figure out who's been trained, the training's over.
Right. Right.
And those people are gone. And so like they're now moving into position. And
Yeah,
then,
they're
like
deployed.
you said, you know, so if she's saying that the embassy attacks are coming next, then it's likely that they were tracking that training occurred well before this homeland attack training. So she's like, well, they've been moving into position during this time. So now they're probably getting operational, which means they're probably going to see them soon, right?
Right. So I've been very obsessed with a show on Prime, and it's a BBC. It's called Rogue Warriors. It's based on the book SAS Rogue Warriors, about the the birth of the SAS, and starts in Northern Africa and moves through Europe and things like that. And as I'm watching this is all I'm thinking about, because all these guys basically did was to just take out high level targets of infrastructure, but they operated on their own, without command, and they just had to win whatever operation they set out to have. And it was, insanely successful, because, you're looking at, like, they would go on raiding parties when they were in North Africa. I mean, they're sending like 4 or 6 guys out, blowing up planes. Right. You're sitting there, you're looking for a wave of people. I mean, you're not looking for like a handful of people. I mean, what happened just down in New Orleans, they're saying that there were other guys there now, but they didn't engage.
Yeah, which she talks about later in this video, right? They're allowed to.
Oh yeah, what's it called? The facade, whatever. I got it. Like the guys who. Yeah, and I don't want to step on it, but.
Yeah, and so that there's like different levels of training and assignments, right? And so and she'll talk about it, but people are trained who they give them autonomous decision where they can change their attack based on the Met TC, right?
Right, exactly. And now if you're looking at it already, so we've already had a basically kind of like a suicide bomber, which was which was the Tesla car, right? I mean, that's it. If you want to classify something, Clayton writes, Josh has a good grasp on the current situation. These guys conduct advanced recon gathering ops on possible targets, just like we do in security. Absolutely. I mean, not even if like everyone does recon, everyone does planning,
yep.
Right? So this is why it's like when people are taking photographs of bridges, they get questioned. It's like, are you allowed to take photograph of a bridge? Absolutely. Without a doubt. It's public. It's in, it's in plain view. Anybody can take pictures of a bridge or a building or a federal building or anything. You're allowed to. But now you do have to keep track of people, and that's the problem with having, a free society. It's just one of those things. It's like, okay, so now what do we do? Well, you're allowed to sit here. You're allowed to take pictures and video. Doesn't matter. You go into your police station, you can take video of anything you want. You're allowed to. So, they won't like it. They'll probably tell you not to. And if you want to be an ass, you can, fight them on it and win. But fact is, we can do that here. So, there'll be, intel gathering, planning. I mean, all that shit takes time, as gathering resources. Cause it's like, I don't know about you. I can't go down to the local hardware store and pick up C4. I mean, I guess you can make it, but again,
it takes time for that equipment to get here, right?
Right. I mean, they're talking about detonators and all kinds of crazy shit. So, yeah, I'm like, it's you got to get it, you got to plan it, you got to stage it. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And then they're picking times and specific dates as well. I wouldn't be surprised if again we come around on 9/11 again or October 7th again. I mean, she gets into some of this shit.
Yeah.
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago in Delhi, India. And we believe this for multiple reasons.
What happened there? before we dig into
Yeah,
that.
we
what
talked about
happened?
this. I think it was my first episode. It was basically a terrorist group, Lashkar-e-Taiba. They did a number. It's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks in the Delhi, at a hotel, the Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking, and they could change the modus operandi they were using. So for example, when they went into the train station, it was supposed to be a bombing. When they got in there, they said, wow, we can kill more people just shooting them than putting the bomb together, and they shot them. Another thing that
Wow. So yeah, so they're not just going in, and just being like, okay, this is specifically what I'm doing. And again, like the whole, Rogue Warrior, in the SAS MO, they're coming in like, okay, you're going to cause havoc here. And they're talking about blowing up a deli and a hotel. They're not talking about like, going into the Super Bowl and blowing up shit. I mean, really. And we talked about this, in the Grossman course that I took a couple times. What would happen in this world, right, if all of a sudden a school bus was pulled over and a bunch of kids were executed?
That would be terrifying.
Yeah, how many people would be sending their fucking kids to school the next day?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, oh, you're not going to school. You're not fucking, everybody's staying home. I mean, this is fucking shit.
Yeah.
You guys,
every school bus is being targeted at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So why wouldn't they do that? Right? I'm like, I mean, school shooting. I mean, we don't need to get to the school. We got a freaking bus driver and then, whatever. So, it's really, I mean, it would be,
it's interesting because, people think that like, and she talks a little bit about this, right? So it's interesting because all terrorist organizations are not the same, right?
Yeah.
And so she talks about how like, Al Qaeda, they want to create an impact. ISIS just wants to kill a lot of people.
Right.
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 So she's like, ISIS is going to pick the target that kills the most people. Al Qaeda is going to pick the target that allows the most impact. Right. And,
right.
They're called terrorist organizations for a reason because they want to use terror.
Right.
And so, like go attack the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, you might kill a lot of people, but then like, you're also going to have one of the world's most powerful countries breathing down your neck because you just attacked the Super Bowl. Right. Whereas you attack the school bus and, a shopping mall and whatever. And now suddenly people are just scared to do everyday
thing. Yes. And that's what shuts it down.
Right. Exactly.
There's a certain amount of inherent risk when you go to the Super Bowl. Right. And you see it. You're going through security, you go through metal detectors. You can't bring certain things in. So like, okay, fine. If something happens, it happened here. I was there. And everyone else in the world was like, well, I wasn't at the Super Bowl, so I'm never going to go to a Super Bowl. So
right.
It doesn't affect me. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just it. So now it's like, oh my God, my kids are on the bus. Holy shit. That was down at the fucking local deli. That was at, that was at the train station. That was at, I'm like, holy shit. Everybody. So, and we deal with this shit all the time. Like everybody immediately reflects on their life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, it's like when somebody dies from a heart attack and they're like, well, did he smoke? Yeah, he smoked. No, I don't smoke. I'm fine. Right. It's like, they blew up they shot up a nightclub. Well, I don't go to nightclubs. Yeah, but you don't understand. It doesn't have to be a nightclub. It would just happen at a nightclub.
Yeah.
One guy talking about, it's like, well, why does it have to be TSA approved? It's like when you're on the plane, you go through security. I'm like, yeah, standing in line for security. I can't think of a more vulnerable place on the planet because everybody is unarmed, right? And you're standing in line waiting in a non-secure area. Add to that, either at bag pickup or, getting your ride coming out of the airport, again, probably going to be unarmed. Your shit's going to be packed away. There's going to be, a lot of shit. Yeah. It's like baggage claim area. Yeah. Everyone's sitting around. There's no security there. So that is the whole point of why you travel with the armor, so, your shit's packed, but at least you can have some ballistic protection all through the process. And then once you get reunited with your firearm, you're all set. So, yeah, I mean, you got to really think about, all it takes is like low security, and it doesn't just more than, a couple people. That's it. I mean, you kill one kid on a school bus. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's 20, doesn't matter. I mean, when you look at what happened in Beslan, Russia, I mean, it's a Wikipedia. You can look it up, Beslan, Beslan. It was in the 90s. It was a, Eastern European company, Muslim group. This is during, oh my God, my buddy was over there. Where were we? Muslim, it was Croatia, and, during that conflict around that time.
Like Serbo-Croatia?
Serbia, yes, thank you, Serbia. That's what I'm looking for. So it was like in Russia, like first day of school is like a big deal. Like it's like kind of like a national holiday. And they went in, and it was, guys with, a couple guys with machine guns, and all they had for, incendiary devices were 55-gallon drums filled with gas. That's it. Wasn't anything sophisticated, and they blew the shit out of stuff, and then they had everything wired. And they held that place for like 5 or 6 days. And the things they were doing were like atrocious to the women and children. And first they executed all the men, and then because it was a K through 12 school, and then they got all the the boys who were like past puberty, they got them to build barricades and do all like the grunt labor, and then they executed them. So, I mean, that like changed, and that changed everything, because like the local cops weren't equipped to handle this. So they had to get like Spetsnaz and shit in there, and they're like an hour, hours away. And it's really the only time that matters during any of this is like the first few minutes. After that, it's like they're dug in, it's over. Once they gain access and position, right? I'm like, now it's a standoff. Now we got to negotiate. Now we can't just go in and do it. And that's why it's so important to have these soft target areas, these schools secured. I'm like, that is just the way it is. Somebody who's there, willing to, meet the threat as soon as possible, and at least stop them for a handful of minutes if they can, while the cavalry comes, so. But think about it. If you get like 3 guys coming into a school, it's done, right? Who are willing to die. It's, it's over, if you got to stop them at the door. So, all right.
What they did is in real time, information was being passed to them. So when they were in the Taj Mahal, they were being told what was on the press and what the police were doing, and they changed basically some of their movements in the hotel to make the attack last longer. Okay, so this is the part that's going to be different, right? So Al-Qaeda always wants to innovate when it does its next attack, right? So I've already told you about the innovation of the suicide vests. Well, do you know we really haven't had a suicide bombing in the United States ever? There's the Nashville guy who did the strange, blew himself up in the car early in the morning when no one was around. That's kind of it.
The AT&T building.
Yep. So we have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. Do you know what this is? I mean,
this was the Fideian attackers. This is what happened down in New Orleans.
You'll know when I explain it. If you fought in like, I don't know, Ramadi, Fallujah, you've seen these. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead, right? So this can go on for multiple days, like the plan was for Mumbai, for example. So we think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombings just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests, right? And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
Okay, let's talk about what just happened.
Wow.
right? So you had multiple cities,
Yep.
suicide, basically a suicide bomber, as far as we know, all right, or it made it look like that. And then you had a Fidean attackers down in New Orleans, because they're also saying that there's possibility that it's not just this guy who clearly was ready to fight to the death, and there were other assailants there that were setting charges and explosives, as we saw in the diagram. So yeah, this, I saw this. We shared this. I shared this with you guys last week.
Mhm.
It was earlier in the week, but yeah.
Yeah. So this just happened. So there's no way around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as more information unfolds from it. In fact, I hadn't heard about the New Orleans thing until literally like 10 minutes before we started. Mark told me about it.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see what more information comes out as far as who claims.
They're saying that he had an ISIS flag and ISIS markings on his vehicle. To me, the flag, the pictures I saw looked like a black jacket. It didn't look like anything, but I didn't know who the hell would hang a black jacket, from the back of their, from a flag stand on yours. So I don't know. Again, they're,
the other thing too about the military aspect of it, which a lot of people forget or don't even realize, is that our military is flooded with like gang members.
Yes, of course they get trained how to shoot.
Exactly. So to say that like these guys were they're veterans, Americans, blah blah blah, and then like now they're terrorists. They could have just been terrorists all along.
People don't know. They assume. You've been in the military. You've served. I deal with a lot of guys who have. So, people assume like everybody's like going in, they're flag waving dudes. So there are people. A lot of people, enlist. Some have to do it because if they don't, they're going to starve to death. Right. So they're too broke. And some of them are really kind of, too stupid to operate the farm equipment, on the farm. So, they're like, you're fucking enlisting, and they can pass the requirements and they got a GED and they can go in. And then some people are just, I'm going to get trained by the military, the best military in the fucking world, and they're going to pay me, and I'm going to come out after a few years, and I'm going to know weapon systems and all kinds of shit that's going to be very, very, very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of people in the military are not the best people in the society,
Right.
Because especially certain jobs, attracts certain mentality types.
Yes.
And that can make them great soldiers, but not great people.
Right.
And when you have people who are not necessarily the most morally ethical, who then are trained, who then are potentially dealing with PTSD or just the highest bidder.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Right. Right. You think there's guys that there's always like, even with like, and the same shit with law enforcement. You got a lot of guys that want to come in and do the job. A lot of guys, guys that come in that because it's a job, right? And then you got guys that just want to fucking go crack heads whenever they fucking can. Yeah. Right. There's people that join the military that want to kill people.
For sure.
So that's like, look, we can guise it behind, they get a nice opportunity to, mask it with serving their country. And again, to your point, these are very useful people in certain aspects of war, like you're like, yeah, the willingness to pull the trigger. Not everybody, how many, I don't know what the numbers are lately, but over the course of years from, World War II, Korea to Vietnam, it's like the amount of people that actually fired at the enemy, is an astonishing low number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's increased a lot, but it is low. Yeah.
They're used to like Vietnam. They're like just like firing off into the fucking jungle, right? It wasn't like they're sitting there. When you can see, it's different when you can see another human being over there too. That's why when they started switching from like round targets to like human shaped targets and shit like that, it started to kind of dehumanize it and desensitize you to actually pull the trigger. But yeah, so we're getting people in, and again, we're always like, and obviously, thank you for your service, all that shit, all day. But yeah, there's people that are joining who are not good people or have other alternative motives. And
there's another possibility too, which there was a movie that came out like early 2000, I think. I don't know, but anyways, it was about a like tier 1 group where they decided that America was too soft and they went on a terrorist rampage, and then like they all got interrogated to gain information of like where their next attack was. Do you remember that movie?
No, I should though, because I watch a lot of stuff.
So anyways, there is potential, since both of these dudes were military veterans, they both went to brag, that maybe they got a part of some little
subgroup
that like-minded individuals, and they're like, maybe they saw this video and they're like, man, we're about to be attacked, we need to wake people up. Maybe they just like had a moment where they're like, I'd rather go down
getting the people prepared than waiting for it. I'm like, which again is beyond twisted thinking, because you're basically doing what the enemy's gonna do.
Yeah, but
I don't want you to get I don't want you to get raped, so I'm gonna rape you.
Yep.
Just so you can prepare not to get raped. Okay. Yes. Again, I think these guys are, who knows what other place they connected. I mean, where the fuck's a Patriot when you need it, right? Doesn't the NSA have these guys like? Don't we have all their phone records and everything, every keystroke that they've done in the last year?
Yeah. So I mean, again, they were at Bragg, right? One was SF, one wasn't. I mean, I went as an 18 X-ray. I didn't make it. Guess what? If you didn't make it as an 18 X-ray, 90% of the chance you were going to like the 82nd. I mean, they could have met at basic training. They could have met at airborne school.
Right. True. Right. Yeah. Right now, again, they I would imagine they have records that would put these guys in the same thing at the same time.
At some point in time, they probably cross paths, right?
But even then, even then, meeting outside through some like interwebs fucking thing.
Maybe they like to go to the same range. Maybe they liked the same steakhouse. I mean, who knows, right?
Right. But and these guys connect, and then
maybe they're completely unrelated.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a distinct possibility.
We just don't know, right? We won't know until more information comes out.
If it
gets released.
Right. But again, you've got a lot of PR here at work. I mean, look what they did with Patrick Tillman. It's like the military is not going to put forth like, hey, yeah, we're training terrorists. We're training our own terrorists. That's a shitty PR on every level. Of course. Right. So, and then you got the guy who's literally fucking to become a Green Beret is fucking very, very difficult. I mean, this is no joke. You went through a lot of shit to get there. And so to think that somebody went through all of that selection and did all that shit and is like, fuck this place. I'm renting a Cybertruck and blowing myself up or shooting myself and not killing anybody, just damaging a truck. It seems like a fucking huge waste of
it's also interesting, you said he came from Mexico or whatever. Again, I don't know the details.
That's the New Orleans guy. The other guy came from Colorado or whatever.
But I mean, like, here's another interesting thing. We have another incident that happened like a couple weeks ago with some kid who, by all measures, should have been like, running a CEO at some Fortune 500 company. And instead, he murks the the
USA Healthcare. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Who is being indicted for shitty shit. I mean, let's face it, you're like, you're looking at it's the healthcare industry is fucking disgusting.
Right. But my point is now we have 3 dudes in basically a month or less who committed acts that are outside of their nature.
At least definitely 2 of them.
Right.
Right. So I don't know about the guy down in New Orleans because he's, from what I can tell, he's regular infantry. I don't know what his MOS was. But
regardless, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
The point is you have 3 people like on paper that don't seem like that kind of situation. Right. You have 3 people within like a month's time that are doing things that would otherwise be outside of the norm.
Yeah, dramatically. You know, I mean, somebody,
so it's like,
especially the guys that were killing themselves. I mean, you know, the USA Healthcare, hitter, if you would. Again, I can't explain his actions afterwards because he put so much thought into it, but to be caught with a weapon on you is ludicrous, right? I mean, he thought enough to pay with cash. He thought enough, he thought through all these things, but he needed that freaking Starbucks, so he went through, he printed a gun, he printed a firearm, he, built it and got a suppressor. And
I mean, again, are we looking at more MK Ultra type situation?
He was missing for 3 months.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. I mean, imagine, okay, so we think back to like MK Ultra. You think back to like, the Manson family and what they were doing there. And that was what, 1 million years ago?
Yeah, not really, but yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As far as we're concerned, it was like, dude, it was like 50, 60 years ago. Yeah. How far has that technology come?
Yeah, I mean, the technology and the processes, right? Because it's mostly a mental process. But yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like they're like, nah, we're not going to do this. Like, no, dude, government doesn't work like that, right? I mean, it's like, no, we're going to just keep throwing money at this until we get it right. It's like men that stare at goat shit.
So I mean, again, you have a kid who planned everything up to a T until the after effect, and it's almost like he didn't. So it's like he didn't realize,
right? Yeah. Like he was released after the event, and then he's just like wandering around in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
He's just like confused, like I didn't realize there was a gun in my bag and all this other stuff. Like I'm just living my life.
I mean, dude, and you don't look like that and go to McDonald's. I mean, the dude's shredded. Right. So, he's not eating McDonald's. So, and you wind up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which if you've been in Altoona, it's steel coal country, Pennsylvania. I mean, it's not where you wind up. I mean, the fact that they found him and somebody recognized him is crazy. But yeah, I mean, but again, yeah. Does he wake up there like, holy shit? What happened? Again, I'm watching that thing. And I'm just like, dude, there's more to it. At least he's alive.
Yeah.
These other 2 dudes are dead.
Yeah.
Trump shooter dead. I don't know what's going on with the guy who was waiting in the golf course, what his story is, but that story seems to have died. Right. Yeah. Why don't we have dossiers on all of these people, but it just gets fucking dismissed as some lone shooter bullshit, It's not like that. I mean, like I was saying, like I've said before, I'm like, Oswald was hard to get. You could find a ton of Oswalds now.
Yeah.
It would be so easy to recruit and find somebody to just kind of mess with, especially if somebody with any type of training, knows their way around weapons or is willing to just do it. Yeah, you can find that crap.
Like what was that? What was that movie? Gosh dang it, I forget what it's called. But it's like the dude, he goes into the CIA, like he gets recruited to the CIA because he's got CIA, and then he like
American Assassin.
No, and then he gets like fake put into like the covert ops side, and they like pull him out of training early. And
the recruit.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell. I just watched that again. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's like that situation where it's like they bring this guy in. They're like, hey, we're gonna bring you to this top secret project. Blah 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 blah. We're gonna train you up. Blah blah blah. And then this is your target, and it's like you don't even know what's going on. And you're like so far deep into it, and you have no idea you're actually the bad guy.
If I'm in intelligence, it would be so easy to find assets and flip them in this country. So easy. I mean, you could just even, all it takes is like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I can't, you need to meet. And hey, Josh, I select you. We've been watching you. We've been tracking your movements. I know you have.
How many people, that's like their dream, right?
It's yes.
Like, oh, gosh,
yes.
This is my dream come true. Yeah. What do you need to do?
And now with the way, the algorithm works and how they can search profiles, you can find somebody that hates somebody, hates this, hates that, you have billions and billions of people to choose from.
Yep.
I mean, it's great because all these algorithm profiles are literally profiling the perfect candidates for them. They don't even have to find him anymore.
Right. So
and they know that person's already prime. Like, hey,
there's literally an endless supply.
Like 10 minutes.
An endless supply. And we could just have And that's what we're looking at. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like Al Qaeda, ISIS, yeah, they don't need to try. I mean, they just need to put up a Craigslist ad.
Facebook. They've
Yeah.
been recruiting hard on Facebook for years, like decades.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And it's working. So
Fidelian matters, right? I was watching, I want to say it was like 8 months ago.
Let me just rephrase that. So these guys are trained, and we already overlaid the video of their training, and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right? So I was watching this video, and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. And it was the bomber blew up. Okay. And then everyone starts moving in. The first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, right? But if Americans don't understand this is
I mean, I will say on the fire department, we were trained with that to understand that, you know, you got your first device. There's always a secondary to fuck up whoever comes in.
Yeah, but in the moment, we don't deal with it, right? That's what.
No,
saying.
we don't.
Moment,
We don't.
how many people
Exactly.
Think, wait, there's going to be a second one, you know?
Unless you've got a good incident commander who realizes that and reminds you of that and looks for it. Yeah, no, you're not. You're not thinking about it. You're absolutely
Which goes
right.
back to why I was like, hey, we need to play this video and talk about it. Is because if we can bring any public awareness to this and just say, hey, be on the lookout, like as a first responder or something, like, no, like, hey, I need to be thinking this could be a possibility, you know?
Right. It's not, you're looking at the primary, you know, it's like the initial attack or the initial dodge where somebody comes up and asks you for your fucking, you know, ask for directions, right? And then you see the other guy behind you is going to hit you over the head with a brick. I mean, it's the same shit. It's like we're getting all you guys to one fucking area, and if I'm planting one bomb, I might as well plant two.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorite things about warfare, combat, etc., is that from one-on-one to like super large-scale campaign, the principles don't change.
Never change.
It doesn't change.
Never fucking change.
Them combatives is like it's the same at one-on-one as it is like 10,000 on 10,000.
Yep.
Right. Oh my God. Yes. And this is, you know, and this what you're like, you know, trying to say like, oh no, tactics come first, right? It's like the same. Yeah. Perfect. All right, let me let it roll.
a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death. Think about that. So the battle's going on, the attacker surrenders, right? He might have the suicide vest. You know, we let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
I mean, I can't tell you how vulnerable we are to this. Right? I'm like, you have anybody, even if somebody had a suicide vest on, even if we knew it, and as soon as the guy said, I give up, I surrender. In other countries, I know Israel, they just take him out. It's not even a question. He's done. Right? But here, you know, if somebody's like, I'm sorry, you know, they could say anything. You know, I changed my mind. You know, help me get this off. You know, we're automatically going to, you know, try to help this person and feel compassion. Somebody is.
Yep.
We're going to definitely hesitate 1,000%. And then after it's all done, and then when we're trying to, then it's over, right? After the initial blast, you know, now we're going to be tending to our brothers and sisters. It's going to be a freaking nightmare. And then more people are going to come in. And then what happens too, I don't know if you got, like, if anybody, you know, if you've been a part of any, like, especially like local law enforcement or local first responder, if there's like a legit incident, everyone and their mother shows up. It is like, you know, want to see an active shooter happens at a school. I'm like, you will see every cop in fucking the Tri-County area, like, descend on this place. If there's a fire.
I was just driving down the road, like right before this podcast, and apparently there was a shooting at a hotel. I have not seen so many responders in one spot in my life.
Yeah, forget it. It's
everybody.
Because again, generally, it's boring, right? I'm like, you don't have a lot of shit. If you don't have a lot of activity, which is generally most, jurisdictions, outside of like, major cities, you're like, all right, oh shit, we got one. It's like, let's go. Everybody wants to freaking go. So, and a lot of guys are just showing up just to see what's happening.
Because there's nothing else going on.
Nothing else going on. I mean, we always said, like, if you really wanted to, like, take care of the, you really want to, like, have your way with the area, I don't know, set like 2 fires. And I go, then you could just kind of go walk into the bank and take whatever the hell you want, just hit the jewelry store. I'm like,
one little distraction, man.
Yep.
Everybody's going to be gone. Everybody's gonna be gone. It's not too difficult, but yeah,
it's really slow when it's like 3 cop cars pull over 1 car.
Yeah, right. Unless you got like, well, I got like a former MMA champ in the car. It's like I may need a couple guys here just to kind of like help me out in case this guy gets a little squirrely. But yeah,
why would this guy travel to get permanent dental implants? Instead of placing you in temporary teeth, you get your permanent teeth in 24 hours.
What kind of places do you think they're going to target?
So this is what's complicated. So Al-Qaeda's preference, as you can imagine, is symbols of the U.S. or anything that causes economic damage, right? So Capitol is a great symbol. Capitol was actually I think the Capitol is, a lot of people are targeting it, but the Capitol was in their propaganda just as 9/11 when they were memorializing 9/11, right? So the Capitol matters. I feel like bridges or any kind of public transportation always matters because it puts costs against us and it causes fear. But here's where it gets complicated. So remember, the terrorists might have their goal is they're going to attack the metro in DC, right? But remember, some of these terrorists are going to be ISIS. And remember, they can change location. So the ISIS guy might go down the metro and say, there's not many people down here. I'll kill 20, but there's a event going on. I'm going to go up there, right? And because ISIS is a little different. ISIS just wants mass casualty. So it's going to be interesting how it works with terrorists that came from different backgrounds and when they get choice.
So some of these terrorist organizations are looking for very strategic stuff like U.S. Capitol, basically U.S. governmental infrastructure and elites. And then on the other hand, you have what I'm used to seeing when we were over there. They just look for the easiest, biggest target because they want to kill the most amount of people in the quickest amount of time and get the most press out of it.
Yep.
And so that would lead me to believe universities, churches, stadiums,
farmers markets, those type of things.
How many people, how many fighters do you think we can expect in each attack?
Well, the 1,000 is all of them. So we're calling it's an Al-Qaeda planned attack, but within those 1,000 terrorists, some of them are ISIS because they want ISIS to be blamed. We have a theory on it. I hate to throw out theories. We think the actual
It's the first time I think you've ever thrown out a theory.
I know. I just think people are like, she's crazy. I think the more of the fighter types are going to be ISIS because then if they're caught, then they talk. I'm ISIS. I think more of the suicide bombers are going to be Al-Qaeda.
Will these attacks do you think these attacks will happen simultaneously throughout the United States, or will they be one day here, next day here, another one over here next week?
So they want them coordinated. I don't know if coordinated means all at the same time, or if coordinated means we do it Monday, we do it Tuesday, we do it Wednesday, we do it Thursday, we do it Friday, just do 5 straight days. So, but they want to coordinate it. What's coordinated mean? And the other argument we have, does coordinated also mean US and Europe at the same time? And is Europe all coordinated at the same time? So when they say coordinated, we don't know exactly what that means. So they could also be US and Europe at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I like how Canada's never mentioned it, though.
I was just thinking that. You guys get a fucking pass.
We're all good. We're all good here.
You mean the 51st state?
Yeah.
Right. It's coming. It's coming.
It feels like it is. Like, fuck, no.
Right. Yeah, you guys got oil and shit. We'll take that.
That's right.
So I don't know if she didn't talk about how many were deployed in Europe.
She does later on in the video. So she says that
Yeah.
there was at least 1,000 for Europe. There's at least 1,000 for the US.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it doesn't have, but they don't have to be coordinated all at the same time.
Yeah, like she said, it's planned, but what does coordination mean? Right.
Right. Right. I mean, in my opinion, it's like, they're still looking for, again, it can't be that coordinated as far as timing goes, because just like she's talking about, it's like, well, I know there's an event next week that I can, have a bigger impact on. So let me wait for that. Right. I'm like, it doesn't, so.
Yeah. But then she also talks about the importance of dates, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
really.
it might be like, hey, just take your targeted opportunity on this day.
Right. Right.
So, and again, we don't know what their exact plan is.
Right.
which is complicated.
Do you think Europe will see mass casualties, or earlier you kind of mentioned that you think that the primary target in Europe is still U.S. embassies?
No, that's for the wave. So remember, there's a wave of embassy attacks, but then there's this multi-coordinated attack. It's a completely separate wave of attacks. So they're going to get the same October 7th attack in Europe as we're getting in the U.S.
Just want to make a note here too. We're talking about like maybe, let's just say on the high end, 5,000 trained, right? So right now we're talking about, we're at like 2,000, but we think there's more. So let's just say 5,000 soldiers,
Well, so if you go on a little bit further, she talks about how there was another attack they planned, and for that attack, Syria. She talks about Syria.
All right. Let me let it
she
go.
says that they had like 60,000 or 30,000 people trained for that or something ridiculous.
Oh, shit.
As planned right now, anyway. And they also, so 1,000 terrorists were supposedly trained for the U.S. and deployed, and 1,000 were supposedly trained for the Europe attack and deployed. The embassy plots are completely different with completely different trained terrorists.
Watch this before drinking plant-based milks.
Oat milk latte.
Protein and oats, almost exactly.
Okay.
Man, why haven't they hit yet?
Because the training takes the time. So for
they're
Israel,
here. They're here though.
Supposedly, yeah.
Okay,
They got here.
Let me ask, how long have they been here?
I'm not sure, but if we just do math quick, okay? Israel, they trained 500 terrorists, right? They got a longer timeline, but they were planning to train 500 in 3 months, right? 2 months. So they're going to train 500 in 2 months for Israel. So for Israel, they did it really quick, but it would have been half-assed. They luckily ended up with 1.5 years. But then remember, I told you they had to train 10,000 for Syria. And I think that gets completely ignored, okay? So they have this huge number, and we just saw what the effect of it, right? So the 10,000 for Syria, and some went to Iraq, became the priority. And then we think the homeland attackers were in there. And then that's training's done too, if that makes sense. So they are training for multiple phases at the same time. So it takes time to get through all the training.
So we got like 10K for Syria. So
if we're talking like, how many operatives are here in America, it could be well over 10,000 over the course of the last 20 years.
Yeah, easily. Right.
Not to mention homegrown, right? How many people have they been able to recruit that are?
And you're also looking at places that are, people who are here, not necessarily, trained as, soldiers now, but they can be providing infrastructure, support, gathering materials,
like
and resources.
She was talking about at that one hotel, right, where they were coordinating the movements of the law enforcement and press so that they could keep the attack going, right? Not every person's a fighter. There's a bunch of people who are logisticians, people who are intel people. They're going to be sitting there just watching the attack, relaying information, filming, whatever.
Right. And even people are getting jobs, security guards, and working places like or enlisting in the military, right? So you're like, they've got access over years and years. And we're talking about since, if we look at, I mean, a lot of these are based on, their feeling is it's all about Osama bin Laden. It's about 9/11. It's about fuck you. And that's about what was happening after 9/11. So, this has been going on over 20 years. Right. So, they've been, because they play the long game. I'm like, they're in it for decades. We're in
generations.
We're in it for 4 years.
Yeah.
Till the next election cycle, and then the next bullshit, then we just get on to the next thing. So, think about how many support personnel per fighting soldier in the U.S. military. Yeah, exactly. So then you got the guys who are trained in. It's like, okay, you're staying here, you're going here, you're getting fed here. This guy's giving you a job here. You're gonna, do all that
and
shit. So.
There's something else that she didn't mention in this, at least in this clip of the video. I didn't watch the entire thing, but something that isn't mentioned is we also know that there's all these cartel soldiers here too. So are those cartel soldiers gonna join in on the fray? Are they a part of it? Are they just gonna enjoy the, opportunities of chaos? Like, we don't know.
Right. And again, you're looking at, when you say cartels, these are like Fortune 500 companies. They're massively funded. They're very fucking smart and savvy. And they're
billions upon billions
of dollars. They are not, it's not what you fucking think. And they're fucking ruthless, so, and they literally topple and run governments.
So, it's like, are they a part of it? Do they know it's coming? Are they just going to take advantage? Or are they just going to sit back and watch? Like, we don't know.
If I were at least, Al Qaeda, if I were a terrorist organization, I would try to, I think it would be in my best interest to, contact them.
I mean, they know that they deal drug money at a minimum together,
Yeah.
So, terrorists will fund their operations through drugs. Well, that's coming through the cartels. So,
Yeah,
like,
Clayton
they don't have connections is wrong.
Right. Clayton brings up a good point. He goes, usually not good for organized business, but who knows these days? I mean, the reality is, if they're coming in through the borders, they're dealing with cartels anyway, because that's who's running the trafficking, right?
Right.
So,
they at least have to get a coyote to take them, right?
Right.
Man, this stuff scares the shit out of me. What do you think? Okay, you had mentioned earlier, we just got done talking about the significance of October 7th. How many other dates are there that it could potentially, I mean, if they're looking for that kind of, symbology or whatever you want to call it, how many dates are we looking at? Is it too many are there too many significant dates throughout the 20 years that we were over there that we can't, we can't. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know you're
How
saying.
many dates are we looking at here?
Yeah.
Is it impossible? Is it 365? Is every day of the year after 20 years a potential date? Or are there some specific hard dates that you think that federal, state, local government should be looking at?
Sure. Well, I think if we just talk about the October 7th investigation we did, we actually discussed 3 dates. We discussed the significance of October 7th being the day we started Operation Enduring Freedom. Remember when I said they started training in August? They actually started training on August 7th. They chose August 7th because that was the anniversary of the Tanzania and Kenya embassy bombings, okay? So they did choose even a historic date to start training, okay? And then when you go to 9/11, the majority of Americans, I don't even think the majority of the U.S. government knows why 9/11 was chosen. You'll get these stupid theories. It was start of the school year, or 11 means Allah, or something like that. It comes from 9/11, 1922. And it was basically kind of, after the time of the British Mandate. And that was the first day they basically took a Westerner and said, this Westerner, and he ended up being a British and Jewish, you are in charge of kind of like this Palestinian type of mandate. And Al-Qaeda had cared about a date from 1922, and that's why they chose 9/11 to attack us. So
no matter where you're watching, Sean Ryan.
Wow.
And that brings up a great point is like, dates that they find significant are dates we've either forgotten about or
we don't care.
We don't care.
It's like always, it's perspective. It's like, we celebrate the 4th of July and, the UK could give a shit.
Yeah, nobody else cares.
Right? Nobody cares about Independence Day. They're like, the skirmish in the colonies. You know, we had shit going on elsewhere. And,
Yeah, right?
girl, you know, so yeah, I'm like, we don't know. And, you know, it's like, you know, that kid that you know, didn't know you bullied in school, but you said something someday and he wound up hating you for the rest of his life. Yeah, right. You know, so yeah, so here we are. You know, takeaways from this, it's, you know, you've got to act as if we are in some form of conflict, because we are. You know, we don't know who's in our borders. We don't know, you know, we know that they're here. We know that they're trained. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, you know, just head on a swivel, being aware of your surroundings every day, you know, because it could be the criminal who just wants to steal your wallet, or it could be a terrorist attack. Like, you know,
right.
You don't know.
You know, and that's why, you know, you're prepared. You know, you got your everyday carry, you got, you know, that's it. You're just, this is how you operate, and this is if you want to increase your chances of survivability and possibly saving other lives.
While also remembering that you can't live life like constantly scared and, you know, in threat level red.
Right, because that's no way. You can't. Dude, you're right. You're just, we're not psychologically made for that. I mean, you will go insane, and if you're like that already, you are insane, and nobody does that. But it's like when you're going through areas of exposure, you're commuting, you're going through crowds. You know, you're at a game. Like, you got to look at it like, okay, man, I'm just kind of like scanning, you know, just like,
it's like a good watchdog. You know, the good watchdog knows what is everyday life and what isn't, right?
Right.
And it's like, you know, you should know, hey, something doesn't feel right.
Yes.
Something not the normal, right?
Yeah. And you can get a vibe on somebody too. You know, again, it's like, I don't want somebody, you know, but again, you have to wait for action, people. You can't just, you know, go, oh, that guy looks like he's Arab. You know, and that nonsense. You know, I mean, we're smarter.
And if they're homegrown, they might not even live there. You know what I mean? Like,
right, exactly. Yeah. You know, exactly. They're not going to grab a guy in, for a turban and sandals, like walking around. I'm like, dude. You know, again, like, we have a tendency also to, but this is what they want. They want us to start, you know, racially profiling. They want us to start, you know, subjugating groups, because that helps them get people for their cause.
Yeah.
You know, you're basically, I mean, you know, we create, for every, you know, we create these for every one terrorist we kill, you know, for every one terrorist we kill, we create 10, right? Because everybody over there's got an uncle or a cousin or a father or a brother that's been fucking killed. So, you know, you've got to like really look at what people's actions are, you know, what they're capable. It's still like the laws of self-defense still apply. You know, you got to look at like intent, opportunity, and capability, right? So, you know, you're like, okay, I'm just going to watch somebody. I'm going to be, everyone should be polite. But if you're prepared, you know, and you're approaching situations, you know, when you're prepared, you can afford to be polite and not scared. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We had a bunch of people tonight. It was pretty cool. Guys, it's good to see you. We are back on for Thursday. I think next time, buddy Ryan's going to come on and talk about what's going on from an intel standpoint. So he'll be joining us. I think he was a former Marine. He's got a security group. He's a JSOC guy. Pretty interesting dude. But that's it. So everybody, thanks for joining us. Until next time, you know, keep training honestly and head on a swivel.
Absolutely.